Now before anyone goes down in the comments to assault me, it should be clear that this video will be mainly looking at Megumi's strength in regards to the versus hierarchy. Yes, I agree Megumi in his own right is strong, however please follow me as I go through the feats in question and show you why Megumi is a little underpowered in comparison to the bigger scope of sorcery. Now already just off of his introduction, it looks really bad when he's forced to use up his Shikigami and protect Yuji's friends, which makes Yuji look far more impressive than him, and this is Yuji's just raw physical strength. Just off of his introduction, he looks weak as shit as a person with no knowledge of sorcery and just with bare hands is better than him. However, it is shown later that in his fight with Sukuna, he was holding back and he could even manage to react to Sukuna, although barely, and it was also probably because he wasn't trying, but we also just see him and Yuji barely stacking up to arguably the weakest special grade in the verse, that being the finger bearer. So already just off of the first few episodes, it isn't looking good for Megumi, and it gets a lot worse when he interacts with Aoi Todo, who essentially does what Rock Lee did to Sasuke at the beginning of the Chunin exams and just absolutely wail on him after he failed Todo's test. It was so bad that bro was contemplating on using his strongest Shikigami right then and there and had to get Panda and Inumaki's help before Todo gave up. Megumi's been in 3 fights so far, and 2 out of the 3 fights he's already resorting to using Mahoraga. And he doesn't participate in the Mahito arc where Itadori goes on to grow a lot more powerful and now has knowledge of cursed energy and even shows relativity to the likes of Nanami, a grade 1 sorcerer. This Yuji is so strong in Megumi's eyes that he thinks he could take on anyone in Goodwill that isn't Todo in terms of physicals, which we do see to be true in the Goodwill event itself, but in this arc as well we do see Megumi fight. Now, in his fight against Kamo, he does somewhat overwhelm him without using his stronger Shikigami, and I would call this a W, but it's what comes after that makes me say otherwise. You see, the special grade disaster curse Hanami shows up, forcing the students to team up to take him down, and during this fight we see Kamo showing off piercing blood, which actually manages to do some chip damage to Hanami. Not only does this have Megumi surprised, but he even questions that he was holding back, and to be fair, Megumi doesn't use his sword or totality, and we do see totality damaging Hanami, and to be honest, this just kind of tells me that Kamo and Megumi's AP should be somewhat relative to one another, as they can do some chicken nugget damage to Hanami, with Megumi maybe being a little superior, but I'm just not too sure. Let me know down in the comments what you think. But who really cares, as the moment Hanami shows up and Megumi has to fight him, he just takes a fat L along with Maki, Inumaki, and Kamo. And once again, Itadori would grow exponentially in power, being able to now damage Hanami with his raw physicals, and Megumi even after the event would say that he's going to surpass him, implying that Yuji's stronger. Just think about that for a second. Base Yuji by the end of Goodwill could probably just beat up totality with his bare hands. That's that's honestly pretty funny to think about. And if you guys think it doesn't get better, well, you're wrong. In the next arc, Megumi would go on to fight a stronger finger bearer than the one he fought at the start of the series, adapting to the winner's mentality that Gojo was talking to him about in order to step into a new realm of power. He would then show off his domain expansion, which although isn't completed, is still arguably the most powerful thing a sorcerer could have. Megumi would go on to catch this W, but right after this, he would pass out. So honestly, you could say this is like barely a W, but I'm gonna be nice to Megumi, as this arc was pretty much made for all 3 members of Team Gojo to step up. And we can now talk about Megumi in Shibuya. The only W he catches is against Awasaka, who he legit needed Itadori to get past his curse technique and overwhelm him. This isn't even a single W. This is more like half of one. And I will say technically he does get the W against Toji, but Toji literally offed himself, and before that he was just pimp smacking him the entire time. And he tries to fight Sukuna and then just gets body slammed by his own Shikigami that he summoned. Megumi does at least show off his growth though, showing relativity to early Shibuya, and the same Yuji is relative to base Nanami in raw striking power. And he was shown the ability to clash with and open Dagon's domain, showing that he is more than likely above Nanami, as even 30% of Dagon's domain was overwhelming Nanami pretty badly. And Toji instinctively goes after the strongest in the room, and he does pick Megumi when Nanami and Naobito were there, and granted, everyone there at that point is fatigued, but that everyone would also apply to Megumi, who just got done using a domain expansion, meaning his cursed energy reserves are probably pretty low right now. So by this point, you can make a case for him beating Nanami, or at the very least is capable of fighting people on his level and is approaching that disaster special grade tier of strength. The next and final arc we will be talking about is the Culling Games, which yeah, this is not looking good. See, on one hand, Megumi catches his first legit W against a character who's kind of competent, you know, I'm not gonna lie. This was a legit W for Megumi. On the other hand, you have him receiving not only the biggest L in his career, but probably in the entire series. Like, this is worse than any L Jogo has received. First, let's talk about the W he receives, which is against Reggie, who he does actually beat through using strategy and his more refined domain expansion. Like I said, this is a legit W, so I'm gonna give this to Megumi. You know, Megumi's actually on a roll now. He's, he's doing his thing. Him and Yuji are doing their thing. You know, I can't wait to see what other W's he's gonna get.
Oh my god, bro.
Yeah.
Damn.
Before Megumi could attempt to summon Mahoraga against Sukuna, Sukuna manages to body swap and essentially leave Megumi's soul in eternal darkness for the rest of the series. Now, currently the manga is ongoing and we don't really know the fate of Megumi, but two things could happen. He either comes back after the final battle ends and, you know, is just alive, meaning his W to L ratio would be like a fucking -2. Or he just simply dies, which is just gonna add another L to the scoreboard for Megumi. It's really unfortunate, as you would expect Megumi to be like just right behind Itadori in terms of like glow up and, you know, him actually becoming super strong, but it just doesn't really happen, and it seems like Itadori is the only one really getting the glow up now. It's kind of unfortunate, but I hope maybe somehow, some way they manage to redeem Megumi. I don't know how he's gonna fight Sukuna right now because, well, he is Sukuna. But if there's any way to incorporate Megumi into getting the final W against Sukuna, that would be pretty cool. But with that being said, I have to ask a question. What does Megumi even do?